The brutal truth about love, Schopenhauer's insights. The notion that love is a sacred institution, where women are nurturing, tender, and loyal, is a fantasy that has been perpetuated for far too long. According to this myth, if you simply love a woman enough, sacrifice enough, and prove yourself enough, she will stay by your side forever. However, this romanticized view of love is far from the truth. In reality, women are driven by a complex set of instincts, interests, and biological imperatives that are often at odds with the notion of romantic love. Philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer, writing nearly 2 centuries ago, was one of the first to pierce the veil of this romantic illusion. In his essay on women, he didn't romanticize them or reduce them to simplistic stereotypes. Instead, he subjected them to a rigorous analysis, revealing a more nuanced and complex reality. What he found was not the divine feminine, but rather a biological strategy that prioritizes survival over love. Schopenhauer's observations are just as relevant today as they were when he first wrote them. Women are not designed to love men for their own sake, they are designed to use men as a means to an end. This end may be physical survival, social status, or emotional fulfillment, but it is not love. In this sense, love is often a secondary consideration, a byproduct of a woman's primary goals. This doesn't mean that women are inherently manipulative or calculating. Rather, it means that they are driven by a set of biological and psychological imperatives that are beyond their control. Men, on the other hand, are often left to navigate this complex landscape, trying to make sense of a woman's behavior and motivations. So, why do women leave men? It's not because they've changed or because they've lost interest. It's because the man has stopped being useful to the woman. He may have stopped providing for her needs, stopped meeting her emotional demands, or stopped serving her interests. Whatever the reason, the outcome is the same: the woman leaves, and the man is left to pick up the pieces. This is the aspect that often goes unmentioned. In this video, we will explore Schopenhauer's most provocative observations regarding women. Our aim is not to lament but to enlighten. Once you grasp these insights, they become impossible to ignore. Accepting this perspective allows you to stop pursuing illusions and start cultivating an unassailable presence. Schopenhauer did not write about women to soothe men, rather, he aimed to reveal the primal instincts that many men choose to overlook. A central theme that resonates throughout his essay is this: women do not exist to satisfy your romantic fantasies. Instead, they are here to fulfill the demands of nature. According to Schopenhauer, every action a woman takes, how she loves, how she chooses partners, and how she departs from relationships, is driven by one fundamental factor: biological necessity. This is not about morality, fairness, or loyalty, it is purely about practicality. He famously stated, "The fundamental fault in the character of women is that they have no sense of justice." While this may sound severe to contemporary audiences, for Schopenhauer, it was merely an observation of reality. He argued that a woman's loyalty is not founded on principles but rather on survival instincts. She will show kindness when it serves her interests and can be harsh when the situation demands it. Her behavior is shaped by her need to adapt for her own benefit, rather than conforming to your expectations. This distinction is why Schopenhauer believed that men are inherently romantic, while women tend to be more pragmatic. While men often idealize love through poetry, romantic notions, and tales of enduring devotion, women tend to navigate relationships with a pragmatic approach, grounded in reality. Their actions are guided by a clear sense of purpose, and their love is not blindly unconditional, rather, it's a thoughtful and calculated decision. When choosing a partner, women often consider factors such as a man's strength, social standing, ability to provide, and dominance. If a man fails to meet these expectations, a woman may reassess the relationship, not out of malice, but because the natural world values practicality over sentimental feelings. This is why many men are caught off guard when the woman they deeply care for suddenly becomes distant. Men often perceive love as an unbreakable bond, whereas women may view it as a temporary phase or a transactional arrangement within a dynamic social landscape. The harsh reality, as philosopher Schopenhauer observed, is that even when a woman isn't consciously aware of the reasons behind her choices, her instincts are at work, driven by ancient, pragmatic, and efficient forces. Ultimately, a man's sense of control in a relationship is an illusion. he was valued as long as he was useful, and when that utility diminished, so did his standing. Until men acknowledge that a woman's love is not an unconditional or sacred entity, but rather a choice based on various factors, they will remain susceptible to the disillusionment that can devastate them. One of the most damaging myths perpetuated about women is the notion that they are inherently innocent, morally superior, and more emotionally refined than men. Schopenhauer's insights dispel this illusion, revealing a more nuanced understanding of the complex dynamics at play in human relationships. He contended that this belief is not based on reality but rather on a fantasy created by men. Men often wish to perceive women as gentle and virtuous, as this perception lends a sense of nobility to their own sacrifices. It transforms their struggles into something meaningful amidst the tumultuous nature of love. However, Schopenhauer held a contrasting perspective. He did not view women as divine beings, instead, he regarded them as pragmatic individuals who, from an early age, learn to navigate and manipulate how they are perceived by others. According to him, women are inherently designed to be obedient. He famously stated, "They are not made for great mental achievements, and they are less capable of objectivity." This statement alone would likely lead to significant backlash in today's society. Yet, his intention was not to express mindless hatred towards women, rather, he aimed to highlight the differences in psychological priorities between genders. Schopenhauer believed that women are particularly skilled in social intelligence, emotional manipulation, and subtle influence, rather than in logical reasoning or abstract thinking. Why does he assert this? Because, in his view of nature's design, women's power is not about physical strength, it lies in their ability to persuade, seduce, and perform. This is where things take a harsh turn. Schopenhauer believed that women have an innate skill for concealment, not out of malice, but because their evolutionary roles required it. He stated, "A woman's face is her fortune. She learns to act innocent, to act virtuous. She smiles sweetly while calculating outcomes. She pretends to be naive while assessing your status. She sheds tears, not always from sorrow, but to reset the balance of power, the innocence you fell for." It was likely an adaptation, a carefully crafted signal designed to trigger your protective instincts. And men, Schopenhauer noted, are eager to believe it. They need to believe in purity, especially in women. Why? Because it gives their suffering a purpose. Because it makes heartbreak feel tragic rather than foolish. But the truth is more sobering. Schopenhauer argued that women are not driven by ideals but by instinctual advantage. Their morality is flexible. Their attachments are conditional. And their emotions, though intense, are not rooted in permanence. This doesn't mean women are evil. It means they are effective. The dynamics between men and women are often driven by different desires and needs. Men typically yearn for love and meaning, whereas women tend to seek security and momentum in their relationships. When the momentum in a relationship stalls, a woman's demeanor can shift dramatically, leaving her partner bewildered and wondering what happened to the loving and affectionate person they once knew. The truth is, she hasn't changed, she's simply evolved and adapted to new circumstances and incentives. The philosopher Schopenhauer cautioned against mistaking a person's accommodating nature for inherent goodness or their actions for unadulterated purity. Once you understand that a person's behavior is often a response to their environment and incentives, you can begin to see beyond their actions and grasp the underlying motivations. This understanding is the first step towards gaining a deeper insight into the dynamics at play. To many men, love is a sacred and profound connection that embodies loyalty and commitment. However, Schopenhauer viewed love as a clever ruse employed by nature to ensure the continuation of the human species. He argued that the ultimate goal of romantic relationships is the propagation of the human race, a notion that supersedes all other aspects of human life. This perspective may seem cynical, but it's essential to consider the underlying biological and evolutionary drivers that shape human behavior. By acknowledging and understanding these forces, we can gain a more nuanced understanding of the complex interactions between men and women. What you thought was transcendent, he saw as transactional, a bait-and-switch tactic of nature, packaging raw sexual strategy inside emotional fantasy. She wasn't in love. She was biologically invested temporarily until the reproductive calculus changed. In Schopenhauer's eyes, the reason women lose interest so quickly is brutally simple. Once her instinctive mission is complete or compromised, the illusion collapses. And here's where it gets even more ruthless. He explained that women, biologically weaker and more vulnerable, have a higher stake in reproduction. So nature equipped them with hyperselectivity, a powerful ability to feel intense passion for a man they believe will upgrade their offspring and then feel nothing at all once the belief fades. You thought the love was real. But Schopenhauer would argue that your DNA was real. The love was just the wrapper. It's not her fault. It's the brutal logic of nature. You're not experiencing betrayal. You're experiencing biological irrelevance. This is why she can move on instantly as if the relationship never existed because the purpose was served or the purpose was lost. Either way, the emotional simulation ends and the true mechanism reveals itself. What is called love is mostly nothing but sexual instinct, more or less concealed by romantic phrases. This is not cynicism. It's clarity. When you finally grasp this concept, the shock of lost affection dissipates. You no longer feel bewildered when she says, "I just don't feel it anymore." This isn't a confession, it's merely an update. Her instincts are adjusting. The chemistry was always conditional. As the conditions evolve, so does the bond. Here's the unsettling truth: men are biologically inclined to take this illusion seriously. You're naturally inclined to believe her emotions are genuine. You're predisposed to fight for something that was never truly yours. She was never yours. You were merely a chapter in her genetic strategy, and the conclusion was inevitable. You just didn't know when it would arrive. But now you do. Schopenhauer's warning isn't about hatred, it's about maintaining clarity. To love a woman without understanding is to enter battle unarmed, expecting a kiss instead of a sword. But to comprehend her nature is how you prevent yourself from getting hurt. Arthur Schopenhauer did not merely express disdain for women, rather, he aimed to illuminate their strategies, driven not by animosity but by a desire for understanding. He posited that many men find themselves ensnared by a sense of guilt instilled by women, trapped in a complex dynamic that they often fail to comprehend fully. Schopenhauer likened the behavior of women to that of a cunning parasite, which, under the guise of being essential, drains the vitality of its host. To unpack this idea, consider that once a man begins to invest his emotions in a relationship, the balance of power begins to change. Women, he noted, have an innate ability to leverage a man's instinctual need to protect, provide for, and please. Schopenhauer pointed out that women do not possess physical dominance, so they often resort to more nuanced forms of influence, such as emotional manipulation, societal conditioning, and guilt-based control. What enhances their power in this dynamic? It is often the unwillingness of men to acknowledge that such manipulation is occurring. He elaborated on how women present themselves as the weaker sex, not to elicit sympathy, but to exert control over those who are stronger. By projecting vulnerability, they can secure protection, and by feigning innocence, they can earn trust. Once a man becomes emotionally invested, he may go to great lengths to avoid causing her pain, even if it means enduring a slow emotional decline himself. This dynamic explains why many contemporary men find themselves unhappy in relationships from which they feel unable to escape. They have been conditioned to believe that leaving a relationship equates to abandonment, that setting personal boundaries is a form of abuse, and that prioritizing their own well-being is an act of selfishness. In the meantime, their inner selves suffer under the burden of relentless stress, emotional instability, and unexpressed resentment. Schopenhauer remarked, "Women are the most unscrupulous of all creatures when it comes to using a man's feelings against him." This statement was not intended as a personal indictment, but rather as an observation of a broader social dynamic. He regarded it as a fundamental principle of nature. In the natural world, all living beings tend to utilize strategies that yield successful outcomes. For women, one effective strategy is to evoke feelings of guilt in men when they prioritize their own needs. This sense of guilt acts as a binding force, akin to a chain or a leash, creating a form of confinement that masquerades as compassion. When a man begins to express thoughts like, "I don't want to hurt her," the philosopher Schopenhauer would contend that he has already succumbed to defeat. Such sentiments typically do not surface in relationships characterized by equality, they emerge instead when one individual feels hesitant to assert his independence. Schopenhauer's insights were remarkably prescient, as he posited that society not only perpetuates this inequality through cultural norms but also through philosophical frameworks. Women are often portrayed as possessing a moral high ground, their expressions of anger are deemed justified, their sadness is considered sacred, and their decisions are rarely subjected to scrutiny. In contrast, men are expected to endure in silence, stifling their own frustrations while serving others without any acknowledgement of their efforts. However, the reality is much more somber. Schopenhauer cautioned that the more a man gives to a woman, the more likely she is to develop disdain for him. This observation is not an act of cruelty, it is a reflection of reality. Men who excessively give of themselves tend to diminish their own worth, and those who neglect their own needs in service of others often find themselves becoming invisible. Her interest in you doesn't diminish despite your sacrifices, it actually fades because of them, until you re-establish your own boundaries, rediscover your personal goals, and rebuild your self-worth independent of her emotional influence. In this dynamic, you stop being seen as a man and instead become a resource, almost like a pawn in a game where the rules are unspoken, yet you continue to participate without question. It's important to break free from this pattern, because the guilt you experience isn't a sign of love, it's a sign of submission. Philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer delivered a powerful critique of romantic idealism. He argued that what we often call love is usually just a fleeting sense of infatuation, a clever trick used by nature to ensure the continuation of the human species. Take a moment to really consider that idea. Many men hold a deep, selfless belief in love. They long for a partner who will truly understand them, remain loyal through tough times, and cherish them for who they are. However, Schopenhauer challenges this dream by exposing a harsh reality. What women are often drawn to is not the man himself, but what he can provide, whether that's security, social standing, protection, pleasure, or influence. In his essay on women, Schopenhauer dismantles the myth of unconditional female love. He suggests that women are guided more by instinct than by lofty ideals, and that this instinct is primarily focused on reproduction and survival. Everything else, romance, compatibility, attraction, is, in his view, more like a performance. According to this perspective, women are not in love with the man as an individual, but rather with what he symbolizes or offers at a particular point in time. This viewpoint can be difficult to accept, but understanding it can help you see relationships more clearly and encourage you to value yourself outside of anyone else's expectations or needs. When a man is at the pinnacle of success, he becomes practically irresistible. However, remove the wealth, physical strength, confidence, or social status, and you'll see how quickly a woman's feelings can fade away. This is a turning point where many men lose their way. They often believe that if they just become good enough, loyal enough, or emotionally open enough, she'll finally love them unconditionally. But the truth is, such unconditional love doesn't exist. Schopenhauer noted, it is a dangerous error to suppose that a woman can be won by mere kindness. She despises those who worship her. He believed that women have a deep-seated disdain for weakness, especially in men. When a man gives his heart too freely, makes her the center of his universe, or seeks validation through her affection, he becomes unappealing to her biological instincts. In nature, only the strongest survive, and women, governed by natural instincts, are drawn to power rather than poetry, to dominance rather than devotion. This presents a cruel irony. A man becomes most lovable to a woman when he prioritizes loving himself over her. This happens when he maintains his sovereignty, refusing to beg for closeness or offer his soul like a sacrifice. It's not to say that women are inherently evil, that's not Schopenhauer's point. His point is that the female nature doesn't align with male fantasies. She doesn't want your heart, she wants your strength. The moment your heart overshadows your strength, you risk losing both her attraction and her respect. This concept highlights the importance of balance and self-respect in relationships. This sheds light on the reasons why many admirable men find themselves abandoned. It explains why women may choose to leave their husbands even after years of what seemed like a stable relationship. The reality is that kindness alone does not suffice. The way men perceive love often differs significantly from how women are naturally inclined to experience it. Women are instinctively driven by factors that enhance their survival and social standing. When these fundamental needs are not fulfilled, their emotional attachment can dissipate as quickly as morning fog. Philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer articulated a poignant perspective on this issue, suggesting that the true tragedy for men lies not in being unloved, but in the painful realization that the affection they believed to be genuine was merely an illusion. He famously stated, "Women are suited to be the nurses and teachers of our earliest childhood precisely because they themselves are childish, frivolous, and short-sighted." While this view may come across as harsh, many find it to be a painfully accurate reflection of reality. Until a man gains a clear understanding of what motivates female behavior, he remains vulnerable to it, and unfortunately, that vulnerability often leads to disappointment. You may have thought she was unique, that this particular woman would be the one to stay by your side. You invested your time, your heart, and your unwavering loyalty into the relationship. Yet, in the end, you were met with silence. Why did this happen? Because, in truth, she was never truly yours. The moment you confused her fleeting attention for lasting commitment was the moment you began to lose. Schopenhauer cautioned us about these dynamics over 150 years ago, and his insights continue to resonate today. Unfortunately, very few men truly pay attention to this reality. It seems that women, by their very nature, often seen as beings meant to serve others. There is a perception that they lack a genuine understanding of concepts like honor, justice, and deep comprehension. For him, the affection of a woman resembles the wind, it tends to gravitate towards the brightest flame rather than the most profound roots. When your strength wanes and your light begins to fade, she may drift away. Here lies a harsh truth that many are reluctant to voice: she does not wish to be possessed. Instead, she seeks to revolve around power. If you are that source of power, she will celebrate your victories, but only as long as you remain invulnerable. In today's society, men are often encouraged to express their emotions, to be gentle, and to give everything they have. However, this approach may not be what truly captivates her, rather, it can lead to your own vulnerability. Once she perceives that she has dominion over your heart and soul, her desire for your physical presence may diminish. This perspective is not rooted in animosity towards women, rather, it is about gaining a clearer understanding of them. It involves recognizing the illusions we were fed as boys and awakening to the realities of manhood. The notion of love that we once cherished was, in many ways, a fabrication, a myth created by poets rather than philosophers. It was not shaped by those who embraced the truth, but by those who were afraid of it. Schopenhauer's philosophy doesn't provide comfort, instead, it offers a path to liberation. This isn't about soothing reassurances, it's about breaking free from three powerful misconceptions. First, the idea that another person, particularly a romantic partner, can magically complete you by filling emotional gaps you feel within yourself. Second, the belief that if you just improve enough, work harder, become more worthy, you'll finally earn unwavering devotion that lasts forever. Most importantly, it challenges the assumption that losing someone equates to a devastating tragedy. The truth becomes clear: no one truly belongs to you. Your connection was simply a temporary moment in their journey, not a permanent possession. This realization allows you to walk away without losing your sense of self. You're not consumed by bitterness, you're simply awakened. This clarity itself becomes your freedom. If these ideas resonate with you, don't keep them to yourself, pass them along. There are countless others feeling trapped in similar struggles who deserve to hear this perspective. Please consider liking, subscribing, and supporting our work via the link provided in the video description below. Thank you for joining us today.